each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings and flew away, he failed to muster up courage to take that plunge which appeared to him so desperate. His father and mother had come around calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for the life of him, he could not move. So what is said here is that his younger siblings, it is said his brothers and his little sister, so his younger siblings, they managed to take their flight. They started to fly. Despite their wings were shorter than his. Their wings were shorter than his wings. But he could not gather the courage. He could not muster the courage, though he tried so desperately. He had tried a lot, but he could not gather courage. So he was scolded by his parents for not trying. And he was so afraid that he could not even move. So that was his problem. He was very much scared. He was very much frightened. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight, teaching them how to skim the waves and how to dive for fish. He had in fact seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it, standing on a rock while his parents circled around raising a proud cackle. And all the morning the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. Now see what happened? So he had been alone for a day after he tried, and what happened here? The parents were busy focusing on the siblings, teaching them how to fly, mastering the art of flying and diving for food. What is the food here? Yes, fish. So the parents were concentrating on his siblings, how to fly and how to dive for food. So all those things. So he was watching them do that. And he even remembered his older sibling, his older brother. Am I right? Yes. Catch fish. The first fish. He caught his first fish. And he ate it so proudly at a rock. And his parents celebrated it. Okay, and that morning, his parents taunted him all the way for being a coward. You're such a frightened goose. Why are you frightened? They were just troubling him. They were taunting him. Okay? The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing warmly on his ledge that faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Then he had found a dried piece of mackerel's tail at the far end of his ledge. Now there was not a single scrap of food left. He had searched every inch, rooting among the rough, dirt-caked straw nest where he and his brothers and sister had been hatched. He even gnawed at the pieces of eggshell. It was like eating a part of himself. Now see, children, here you find that the young seagull, it was feeling very hot and it had nothing to eat. Now the sun had risen and he had to bear the heat of the sun. And the thing is that he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Just imagine. So what did he do was that he even gnawed at the dry pieces. He started nibbling, he started eating in small pieces at the dried pieces of eggshell, from which he and his brothers and sister had hatched, the nest where they had hatched. So it was like eating a part of himself. He was feeling so hungry that he started eating the pieces of eggshell. Okay? He then trotted back and forth from one end of the ledge to the other, his long grey legs stepping daintily, trying to find some means of reaching his parents, without having to fly. But on each side of him, the ledge ended in a sheer fall of precipice with the sea beneath. And between him and his parents, there was a deep, wide crack. Now, what is said here is that the young seagull, he tried to reach his parents. How? How did he reach his parents? Did he fly? No, then what did he do? He was trotting back and forth from one end of the ledge to the other. What is trotting? He was running in a moderate speed. He can't fly. So that what he was doing was that he was trotting. He was running at a moderate speed from one end of the ledge to the other. Okay? But he saw only the steep precipice, the steep rock, the cliff, as you can see in that picture there. So only the steep precipice, the steep cliff or the steep rock he could see on either side. And so he could not reach his parents. Why? Because there was a deep, wide crack between him and his parents. There was a wide chasm between him and his parents. There was a wide split between him and his parents. Did you understand that? Okay. Surely he could reach them without flying if he could only move northwards along the cliff face. But then on what could he walk? There was no ledge and he was not a fly. And above him he could see nothing. The precipice was sheer and the top of it was perhaps farther away than the sea beneath him. And what is said here? Did the seagull, did he succeed in his attempt? No. So it is said that the seagull could not reach his parents. Why? Because there was nothing to walk on. There was nothing to walk on that would bring him to his parents. There was a deep, wide crack. It is that deep, wide crack that separated him from his parents. And there was no way for him to reach them except by flying to them. And was he able to fly? No. Why? Because he was frightened. Okay? He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge and standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau dozing, with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. Only his mother was looking at him. Now see what happened. He stepped out of the ledge. And what did he do? Yes, he pretended to sleep on one leg. Why did he do that? Yes, very good, to gain attention of his family. And did they notice him? They took no notice of him. They did not even look at him. And his siblings were sleeping. And his father was cleaning his feathers with his beak. And what was his mother doing? His mother was standing in another plateau eating fish. She was eating fish while she noticed him. She was doing two things at the same time. She was not only eating fish, but also she was looking at him. Okay? She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet, and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. He uttered a low cackle. His mother cackled too and looked at him. Now see here. See how his mother motivated him. What did she do? Yes, she tore a piece of fish and she scraped each side of her beak on the rock. Now looking at her, the seagull got mad, on seeing the fish because he was hungry. And he too loved to tear fish like his mother did and scrape his beak now and then. This is what he loved. And he was so maddened to see his mother doing that. Gah, 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 he cried, begging her to bring him over some food. Galwa, she screamed back mockingly. But he kept calling plaintively, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But when she was just opposite to him, abreast of the ledge, she halted, her legs hanging limp, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. Now, this is a turning point. Now see, he was crying out of hunger to his mother. And what did his mother do? His mother too screamed back angrily. Why? Because he was not flying. Right? So then, at the sight of his mother flying towards him with a piece of fish, he was joyfully gave a joyful scream, and he was so excited when she came near and leaned forward with the piece of fish on her beak. She suddenly stopped not too far from him. It was just within his reach of his beak. She was haltingly, she came up, and her wings were motionless, the piece of fish in her beak within the reach of his beak. Did she give him? No, but it came almost near him. Okay? He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. His mother had swooped upwards. As he passed beneath her, he heard the swish of her wings. Now see what happened? Yes, what happened now? It was the extreme hunger that made the seagull fly at last. What happened? The mother, she had a piece of fish between her beaks, but she wanted him to come flying to get the piece of meat. Now, out of excitement and out of hunger, he dived at the fish without realizing for a moment, yes, that he was afraid to fly. Out of hunger, he just came. He fell outwards and downwards into space. That is what is said, without realizing that. And he went straight to get the piece of fish. Okay? Then a monstrous terror seized him and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a moment. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. He just felt a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Now see what happened. What happened now? The young seagull, he dived at the fish, and the fish was in his mother's beak. And when he dived, he fell outwards and downwards and into the space. And the wind was rushing against his breast, and he was so terrified. His wings opened suddenly and he began to, cut through the air. He was not falling now, and thus he overcame his fear. He could feel the wind, yes, against his breast feathers, the stomach, and his wings, and he could feel himself cutting through the air, and he was not at all afraid. He was not at all frightened. Yes. Uttered a joyous scream and flapped them again. He soared higher. He raised his breast and banged against the wind. Gug, 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 gawla. His mother swooped past him, her wings making a loud noise. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him screaming. Then he saw his two brothers and sister flying around him, soaring and diving. Now see, what do you find here is that all the family members, the whole family, they supported him. What did his mother do? His mother flew past him, and his father was flying over him. His brothers and sisters, they were flying around him, and thus the family members supported him. Okay? Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly, and he commenced to dive and soar, shrieking shrilly. So you find that he overcame his fear. He forgot that he was once afraid of it, and so he did all the things he once feared. That is, he was diving and soaring and shrieking in very loudly and forcefully in high-pitched voice. He was so happy that he completely forgot that he was unable to fly. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving over it. He turned his beak sideways and crowed amusedly. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green floe in front of him. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. But he was tired and weak with hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. His feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no farther. He was floating on it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish. He had made his first flight. Now see what happened. See the climax? What happened now? Yes, he flied straight over the sea. He was not afraid now, and he could see the greenery, the mountains beneath him, and he was screaming out of joy. He enjoyed his victory of his flight. And see what happened? When he landed, his family landed along with him as a gesture that they were proud. And they were all screaming and shouting in excitement in their high-pitched voices. Then what did he do? Yes, he went into the sea, where at first he got scared. The first time he entered to the sea, he was scared and he panicked. And then he tried escaping, but he got tired and weak and because of hunger. And then he calmed down. He started floating in the sea he was once afraid of. Okay? And now his family was celebrating in excitement and offered him food as praise. What fish is he given by them? Yes, scraps of dogfish. Yes. Finally, he had overcome his fear and he had made his first flight. And I hope you enjoyed the story. Okay?
Hello, my dear children. You have listened to the story. You have understood the theme of the story, developments in the story, characters, and the message also. Now, I would like to ask you very simple 3 questions. Are you ready for answering it? Okay. Number 1. Why was the little seagull afraid of flying. Question number 2. What did the parents do to encourage the little seagull? And the final question, how did the parents motivate the other seagulls in the family?
Well, the young seagull was afraid to fly because it was scared of the vast expanse of the sea below and had no trust on its wings. To motivate the young seagull, its parents often came near, shrilly called, scolded, and at times threatened to leave it starved on the sledge. The parents of the little seagull helped its siblings to perfect the art of flight, to skim the waves and dive for fish.
Based on the story you have just listened to, let's discuss some questions. Cite an instance which shows the pathetic condition of the young bird.
As the sun was blazing, it was very hot on the sledge. The little seagull had been starving since the previous night. It searched everywhere for something to eat, but in vain.
How did the bird try to reach its parents without having to fly?
Instead of flying into the sky, the little seagull trotted back and forth on the sledge to reach its parents.
Why couldn't the seagull not succeed in its attempt?
As the precipice was farther away and the sea was below it, the seagull failed in its flight attempt.
Do you think the young seagull's parents were cruel?
Truly, the parents of the seagull were not cruel, but they were inspiring the young seagull to be independent and seasoned to all situations.
Parents at times behave harshly to children. Does it mean they don't love them?
Well, it's a question like, the nurse who injects a patient is cruel to him. So, parents may at times behave harshly to their children, not out of hatred at all, but for their children's better and brighter future and to make them self-reliant in life.
What prompted the little seagull to fly finally?
The little seagull was mad with hunger and thirst, as it has been starving for hours. So, forgetting the fear, it dived at the fish its mother had brought nearer.
What was the seagull terrified about? How did it overcome it? How did the family of the seagull support it?
The little seagull was too terrified to leave the sledge. But when it slipped into the space, wind supported it and kept floating. Thus, the little seagull overcame the initial fear.
Why couldn't the young seagull stand on the green sea? Do you think that the bird's parents loved him? Why?
As the little seagull was inexperienced, its legs sank into the green sea and could not stand on the green sea. Yes, the parents of the young seagull were trying it all the possible ways to help it learn the art of flight and dive for fish. As it learned them all, they greeted and fed it with dogfish happily. Dear students, now let's take a quick glance at the activity 1 of the lesson, his first flight. Theme of the story. Diffidence or lack of confidence is the theme of the lesson. It's up to ourselves to know ourselves, our potentiality, latent talent, and how to make use of the same at right time in the right way. The real crisis the little seagull faced was distrust in its own ability. The parents of the little seagull were seemingly or apparently harsh, but loving and caring at heart. Their harshness towards the little seagull was to make it self-reliant and identify its own potentiality. Dear students, I take it for granted all of you enjoyed the story with an inspiring message. Now you have a simple assignment. Help yourself, improve your English. Have a good time ahead.
What do you think are the requirements to attain success in life? List them below. Can their help alone help you in fulfilling your ambition? Do you think that you can also fly high in your life? What sort of support do you really expect from your family?